another episode of the Andaki Hustle Show. I'm your host, Alejandro Flores Munoz, and today we have a special host, which is Juan, and I'm going to let him introduce himself in a little bit. But I am really excited to be finally really kicking things off with the Andaki Hustle Show. This is our second episode that we are recording. The reason why Victor Galvan is not with us today is porque el cabrón se nos fue para Mexico. He was able to get advanced parole and is in Mexico right now. He's one of our DACA recipients, a fellow entrepreneur, and right now he's with a group of DACA recipients over in Mexico. And I've been living through his stories. Ojalá que hasta me traiga un granito de arena. Le voy a mandar un mensaje al cabrón para que me lo mande. But I'm really excited for Victor, and that's why today we have Juan, where I'm actually really excited to have him on this specific episode because we're going to be talking about legitimizing the hustle and why that is so important for us with or without papers. Immigration status shouldn't be a barrier to legitimizing the hustle, and we're going to talk about that today. So before we get on that, Juan, tell us a little bit more about you, and thank you again for being here.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Juan Maya Hernandez. I've been connecting with Alejandro. I think I reached out to you maybe like a year ago or 2 years ago. So it's actually, you're one of the people that I look up to. I've looked at all your videos, the NBC, everything. Oh, no, no, no. Sorry about that. But yeah, my name is Juanma Hernandez. I graduated UCLA in September, and I started my own photography business when I was 19, when I didn't have DACA, and that's how I paid some of my school expenses. And now I'm building, a new hustle, and I'm just here to learn and learn from Alejandro and learn from all these interesting conversations. So I'm happy to be here.
So I think something happened over here with our recording in our. We're also simultaneously, as we are here live, we are also recording on for the podcast through the Spotify podcast app, but something's going on. Anyways, when I send you another link for that, just to see if you're able to join. But I think Juan kind of sets us off right away to something that why the reason we want to talk about legitimizing the hustle, which is, as Juan mentioned, at 19, he started a little side hustle in photography that eventually allowed him to pay for his expenses as being a college student, all these little things that we're seeing. And probably Juan started this because of necessity, right? He's like, I need to do this to pay for the bills. And I'm sure it did. ¿Sí o no?
Yep, I used to work as a day laborer with my dad before that. So I was always doing like, so for people that don't know what day laborers are, if you go to any hardware store, the people, standing outside of like a Home Depot, that's what my dad did. And that's what I did for some time. And I started the hustle, like, because I needed to fund for my next physics class for summer and I didn't have the money. So had to find a way. So yeah, definitely necessity.
Yeah, totally. And so as we start and we're thinking about the hustles, and a lot of times that's how it starts, right? We come to this country with often no pathway to employment, and we rely on our skills, rely on selling the product, being able to utilize our network, our community, and nuestra gente around us. For example, for me growing up, I watch my mom, and she still does sells cheesecake and flan, right? And the reason why we want to talk about legitimizing the hustle, it's because I know that if, for example, my mom had the right permits, the right licenses, she not only will be able to pay those necessities that we're talking about, like rent, bills, all the things that are a life expense, but also prepare us to put us in a position where we can potentially grow the business to a level where we're not only just making enough to survive, but we're making enough to be able to take vacations, to be able to get the kids to go on extracurricular activities. Todo ese desmadre we're able to do if and get us into a better position when we legitimize the hustle.
No, yeah, 100%. It's there's just so much unseen potential, right? That some of these businesses that come from other countries are able to do, like you mentioned, like your mother, my father's a day laborer. If they could legitimize it, I mean, they can really scale it to 100,000, 200. I mean, no one knows. No one
Yes,
knows, right?
yes. And to give more of like a direct kind of way that, like, for example, for me and how I've seen that firsthand in my hustles, right? So when I started my food truck business in 2018, one of the first things was, okay, I need to make sure that we have health permits, that we are getting our licenses to be able to operate. I didn't know how really the business, I mean, food truck world worked. And so I'm like, do I need to have a license for the food truck? And how do I get that? And all of those things. And at first, I did not know how to navigate it. However, I know that there are systems in place. And a lot of times, these systems, and most of the time these systems were not created with people like us in mind, people who lack documents, who maybe don't speak the language. All of these kind of like unseen barriers for some are big barriers for people in our community. And so I know that that's one of the first things I feel like I need to address, and it's the thing that a lot of times we don't want to really get ourselves involved with this bureaucracy, or in these in like meddled in the city agencies, porque tenemos un poquito de miedo, right? We don't know how to navigate that world. And so a lot of times we're just like, push it off, push it off. And I think there's going to come a time where you need to, whether that be because you need to operate in a legitimate way, or you need to grow, and you can't without having some of these permits and licenses. So for me as a food truck owner, I knew that, I needed to understand how to navigate the health department. I need to understand that, okay, I need now insurance not only for my food truck but also for my employees and myself. We needed to get the business tax license. And so at the end of the day, it was so many applications. But once I went through that process one time, the second time around when I needed to renew or I had a different business idea, I already knew how to navigate through that. And so I think things will get easy. We just have to know where to look.
100%. And I think it's also, I think it's also important to note that, like, every state is different with the amount of resources that they have, right? Like, I know you're like in Denver. I'm in California. There's even a gap between resources on what you can do there, or what resources are around there, and also like technology. Some people, they might not be technically savvy, or the English might not be there to be able to understand some of these different things. And that's one of the things that I've also like realized, um, you know, um, throughout the years.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's 100% true. But one of the things, Juan, that I've noticed since I've started my hustles, I started my first side hustle in 2013, selling sunglasses. I made my own brand. I imported my own design. Made my own designs, imported from overseas, and sold them here. So I've been doing side hustles and legitimizing my business since 2013, even before DACA as well for me. And what I forgot where I was going with this.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about how you've been legitimizing your businesses. I was just giving you a perspective on, how language can be a barrier, how the different states could be a
Ya
barrier,
me
and I think
acordé. Sí, 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 sí.
that's where you were gonna talk
There
a
we
little bit
go. There
about
we
that.
go.
Yeah.
I went off track, off topic, y luego se me fue la canica. Uh, but no, I think that yes, there are so many resources out there right now. I feel like over the past few years, specifically because of all the restrictions that we saw with the global pandemic, we saw all these kind of like things that our community got hit harder, and because of those reasons more resources became available. We became in the forefront. We were all of a sudden shown that we have all these disparities. And so I have seen programs tailored and created with us in mind, with people who often lack access to capital, who don't have access to educational resources, maybe capital, all of these things. There have been programs where you can sit down You're gonna have to put in some sweat equity, meaning you're gonna have to sit down and pay attention to these courses. It might be a 4-week course, a 6-week course. I know I've been part of a few of those things, and I'm thinking back and I'm like, chingao, if I only had this information 10, 15 years ago, would I have been in a different position now? Maybe, you're right. I could have been in a different position now. The fact is that these resources exist, and where you can find these resources are local nonprofits, right? So look for maybe an immigration centric organization in your area. For example, here in Colorado, we have an organization called CIRC. It's the Colorado um, Organization for Immigrant Rights. I am sure if I go to them and I ask them, hey, I'm a small business owner, I'm thinking of starting a small business. If they don't offer the service directly, they know, you know what, Alejandro, we deal with, legislative immigration issues. However, we know of Mi Casa Resource Center, who offers support for first-time Latino business owners. Give them a call, right? That exists out there.
Yeah, and I want to give a student perspective because I did some of these programs as a student in 2021. So I attended UCLA, and UCLA had this like startup accelerator. It was called UCLA Summer Accelerator, and the thing about it is like now for students, right, whether you're undocumented or you're not, there's these entrepreneurship centers in schools, and a lot of them have, like, for example, UCLA had like legal office hours with attorneys that you can just like talk to. And then they had like, oh, there's pitch competitions that you can go and pitch. Obviously, like you mentioned, sweat equity. You have to do the work. You got to have traction. But that's how I got involved. And that's how I raised like $20,000, like during my undergrad, just for the business that I was doing. And I think there's not a lot of people like us in those programs. So I think it's just a matter of time where people realize, and I hope they hear this and they're like, okay. And some of these universities, there are entrepreneurship centers or entrepreneurship majors that have the resources, and it's all about just looking at the right places at the right time.
Yeah. And now that we've kind of like established that the importance of getting legitimized, right? So if your hustle is legitimized, and if you're starting where you're just selling to your tias and your tios and your neighbors and your uncles, then what that's doing is you're perfecting your recipes. You're learning that, okay, if I need to cook for 10 people, that's a lot different than cooking for 3 people. So you're starting to mess with your little recipes. You're starting to see, your menu, testing your menu. If you're doing a service-based business, maybe you're only servicing to your local networks, and within that, by doing that, you're gaining some traction, and you've gotten some customers, right? People love your tamales, and they're coming back to you week after week. And now your kitchen where you're cooking things out of, all of a sudden it's not big enough. So now you got to get to the next thing. But to get to the next process, for example, if you want to lease or rent a commercial kitchen, that commercial kitchen manager is going to ask you for your business license, your business insurance. So in order for you to move to the bigger space to make 50 flans out of one batch, then you need to go, legitimize the hustle. So, and that can be daunting, if you don't know how to navigate that world, specifically if you're undocumented, if you don't have the proper documentation. Like we've said before, it's very state by state. Some states are harder than others on immigrants. I know that here in Colorado in 2021, a law passed where undocumented people, regardless of your immigration status, can apply for professional and business licenses, which is huge. Some states require other things. However, I have done a lot of speaking engagements and have been able to be part of a lot of seminars and workshops that have showed me that in order to, even if you don't have documents, by obtaining an ITIN or an EIN number, you are able to then properly start your business entity. And with that business entity that you create using an EIN through your ITIN, the people who are from for our audience knows what ITIN is and what EIN are. If you don't know what those are, specifically ITIN, there are immigrant organizations out there that can help you obtain an ITIN if you don't have DACA, right? But at the end of the day, you're able to structure your business to allow you to then obtain business licenses, obtain banking information or banking accounts, and so forth.
And grants, a lot of the grants ask you to have your LLC set up because they want to see commitment, right? Like I've applied to a few grants that are like 5K, 10K, and they want to see, are you an LLC or are you planning on using this money to get your insurance, to get your LLC, get your insurance, get all your paperwork right. So I think it's also important to, to continue to scale and get more opportunities.
100%. I think also in terms of cost, right? Once you have, let's say you have your ducks in a row, when by meaning either you got your EIN number or you have your SSN number because you have DACA. Um, and if you have those two things, and then you're like, okay, I have that. Let me see how much. I mean, how to get to navigate that world. And you found the application and you're applying. And when it comes down to payments, right? For me, and all the businesses I've opened, and mostly have been either service or food, um, I've it's been anywhere from $350 to about 1,500 to get licenses. And so when you put it in that perspective, and you're like, maybe you're not opening because you don't know how much it's going to cost you, you don't know the road. But then now that you're like, oh, wait a minute, it's only going to cost about 1,500. But don't quote me on this, right? Like, do your work. Go on the computer, go to the local city agency and be like, City of Santana or City of Denver, what is the cost of business license? And they'll tell you there how much it is. For my latest one here in the city of Jefferson County, I used to be in Denver County, now I'm in Jefferson County. The switch was tremendous. I think for this one, I don't acuerdo. I just renewed. My renewal fee was 195, but I want to say my startup food retail license was, I want to say 495. So it varies in terms of cost.
Yeah, no, yeah, it definitely. I do feel like a lot of people, because that also happened to me when I started this photography business. When I was 19, I was like, is it gonna be an LLC? What permits am I gonna get? And I feel like that also sometimes gets in the way of you actually doing the practical stuff of like, I actually need to make money so then I could eventually sustain something, right? And I think that's also like one of the things that I'm doing it at a smaller scale. You've had more businesses. I'm kind of just starting out. But yeah, I also think that sometimes it's like, what like business structures, LLCs, permits can get in the way of you actually starting it, because you get overwhelmed. You're like, oh, there's just too much. What do I do? What if I do something wrong? But you could fix that with money. Like if you're making money, you can pay somebody to do it for you, or you go to any of these organizations like you mentioned, right? And then you can kind of sustain it. That's what I learned from when I did the photography stuff. I was just like, oh, okay, then I can just pay somebody. If I'm making $1,000, I can do that. Like I can just go to somebody and they can help me out. Yeah.
And then you look at it as an investment, right? It's like, okay, I need to invest $1,500 to be able to get my health department license, and then another $700 to get a commercial license. So now I've invested about $2,500 just to position my business to be in a place to take on more work, to take on more business. And I think licensing and just alone on how to get there, how to navigate that process, the fees, all of that can be scary. All of this can be searched to kind of like get you off that scary mindset. And like I said before, once you've done it once, the second time or the renewal, it's going to be easier, and you're just going to have that as like, okay, it's something that's part of being a business owner. It's getting all these things ready. And I think when you mentioned about the grants, I think that one was a clutch mention, because right now, a lot of people are wanting to, like I said, there are a lot of opportunities out there to support women-owned businesses, first-time entrepreneurs, I can go on and on of some of these intersectionalities that we have as immigrants in this country, that there are programs designed to support us in those ways. Just like exactly like we're doing, like, right, we're talking about it. We're not going really into details on how to do that. But if you do want somewhere to get started, you can look at organizations. For example, one here in Colorado, I want to shout out one of them, which is the Undocu Hub. Undocu Hub is an organization. It's a website pretty much that's probably has like 15 different um, industries that you can think of. Where you have questions on how to navigate either government agencies, entrepreneurship, if you're trying to get food support, if you're trying to get transportation support, all of those, there are resources out there for our community, because it's one of the things when we have to understand también a veces, it's, and you kind of were hinting at this, is that sometimes we get too focused on getting like legitimizing the hustle that we forget things over here, or vice versa. And there are so many barriers that we have to face, that sometimes structuring a business is not one, because you're just like, I just need to be able to make some money to, for X or whatever, for whatever thing you're going to need to in your livelihood. And you're like, I'm not there yet. And so that's where I think a little bit of support can be very helpful and helping you, guide you through that process. That way you're not doing it alone.
I agree. I agree. And because so I did an accelerator program at UC Berkeley, and I did one at UCLA. And the way that some of these programs work is every single week, you check in, you tell them about your goals, and then they have like workshops on, like, either they bring in other entrepreneurs, they tell you on certain how they scaled, how they raised money, and then they keep you accountable, right? And sometimes that's what we need when we're just starting out, and that's what some of these programs provide. They provide workshops, or they provide fireside chats with other successful entrepreneurs. And I think, especially, I mean, I'll always speak on it on the student perspective, because that's the one that I have the most experience on. But you were giving away one resource, but I'll give one here in California. Like I mentioned, entrepreneurship centers around any university in California, even community colleges, they have some of these connections to either pro bono attorneys if you have questions on your getting your structure. But they have grants, most importantly, like they have grants. And I think it's just a matter of time. Like I mentioned, that like once the community picks up, they're gonna start applying, and all new innovations. And who knows, maybe one day we'll give out a grant. I don't know. Maybe you'll give out a grant. Like, I mean,
That would
no
be
one knows,
nice.
right?
That would be dope. Yeah. No, I've been actually wanting to do something like that. Have you ever seen those people on TikTok? They're like, they stop the food, the street vendor, and they're like, do you accept tips? And then they're like, here's $500 tip, right? I could totally see like the Undocu Hustle show doing that, but with saying, here's some cash money that's gonna, like, benefit the person directly, more than likely, their everyday livelihood. But then also pair that with, hey, how can we build you a website? How can we maybe get you a cash drop app so that you can take online payments? How can we, you like, not only just give you these $500 cash right now that are so needed, but also a follow-up? Wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh yeah, that would be great. I mean, if the Andaki hustle show continues to grow nationally or globally, right? However big you want to build it, I think you can have something like Shark Tank style, right? Where you have a group of judges. And I don't know if you've ever seen how Univision has done something like this, where they give $25,000 of grants, and then they have people kind of pitch like on a Zoom call, and they kind of pitch, and then you pick the best pitch. That could be one way. And you could choose a few winners, and then you build up partnerships, right, with attorneys for their their business questions, an accountant for their tax questions. That'd be great. That'd be a great idea, honestly.
Yeah, so many
That'd be
so
a great
many
idea.
so many
Yeah, yeah,
things,
yeah.
like so many good things that can be done out of this show. And ultimately I think that's why we're building this, right? It's like, I think, one also, for me, I love interacting with people like you and people like Victor, and people who might take some insight from our conversation, because I take insight from our conversations, right? Like, I'm like, so I know that the things that we're putting out there, our content that we're putting out there, has to help someone, right? And it will help someone And sometimes, right, where we'll have conversations, and soon we're going to start having more guests on the show where we're interviewing entrepreneurs who are either just starting off their hustle or who have taken their hustle to the next step, right? I remember last season we interviewed the homie, también se me hace que se llama Juan, he owns a salsa company. And the way that he started is he started bottling his own salsas and going to farmers markets. And I remember him telling us this way. He was like, the first day that I went to go sell salsas, I just saw this farmer's market and I thought that everybody brought their own chairs and tables and tents and they just set up. So I came in, I set up my table, I set up my tent, and somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, who did you book your reservation with? Like, he's like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to, right? I didn't know I was supposed to go through this process and go do an application and show you guys my health permit and all these things." He's like, "I thought people were just setting up right here." And now it's the way he's in grocery stores. He's legit in grocery stores. But like I said, right, he had to legitimize that hustle. So in order for him to be able to just even start selling his salsas at the farmer's market, which is basically on the street level, right, for them to allow him to get him into this target audience, because the people who go to farmers markets will pay $8, $9, $10 for a can of salsa. All right. And so like that's where you want to be. That's the other side of why legitimizing the hustle is important, because then now you are presented opportunities where we're talking about being able to have the revenue or the business come in where it makes a true impact in your pocket, where you're able to start now making savings into your account or reinvesting those dollars, right? And so for me right now, just give you another example, like the salsa guy, for me, it's a food truck that I eventually started getting a catering license where it allowed me to sold more. I started doing caterings. Right now, and because I have, right, like my insurances for the business, for the commercial kitchen where it's a huge space and I'm able to have or produce a lot. Because of all those reasons, I feel prepared and ready enough to submit a bid to take on a very large contract. And if I get this contract, it will mean that right now I'm doing about 300 servings a week right now. It will take my business from doing 300 servings a week to doing 300 servings a day. And because I have all the paperwork in line, I not only have my paperwork, but I have the experience to back it up. I've been doing caterings now for 4 or 5 years. I feel ready. And that's where we're trying to get to, where we're trying to get the community para que estén listos, ready to take on these opportunities when they do come.
Yeah, I guess like one question that I have is like what have been some of your challenges, like when you try to implement something that is going to help you scale, given that you already have some licenses? Do you have new licenses or more permits, or like?
And you know what? I think and we've been focusing on licenses on this specific call, but to be honest, the licenses haven't even been one of my challenges in at all, right? That to me is like, no, I don't see that as a challenge at all. But that doesn't mean I don't face challenges in my business. And right now, for me, the biggest challenge is having cash flow. Is having, right, the opportunity to take, if I do get a contract that's larger, that's another thing that we need to be talking about, which is that money, that capital to be able to, because now I have to produce meals for 300 people. When I was doing that in 1 week, now I have to do it in 1 day. You're talking about over 1,500 servings in a week. That means the amount that I'm going to have to put in to purchase products, tortillas, aceite, labor work, all of that is just increased. So now my biggest challenge is not, do I have the licenses, or can I prove that I can do some sort of gig or take on that contract? Now it's, can I fund it? Can I pay for it? And that right now, my friend, is my biggest challenge.
Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah. So
Because I don't know
are
if
you
I'm gonna. I don't know if I'm gonna look. I feel like I'm in the running, and see, they haven't told me no. So I applied for this grant, not grant, this contract to do food service meals for houseless shelters, specifically in Denver right now, where we've seen an influx of migrant people. Refugees coming to a lot of major cities, and so homeless shelters, government agencies have taken an influx of folks, and so they're looking for services to help feed folks. And I submitted a bid for it. Now, I did it for two reasons. One, because I was like, all right, I need to have a little bit of more like secure income coming in, and a government contract like that will do that for me. But also because I wanted to go through that process, Juan. I'm like, okay, right, like what are they gonna ask me for? What is it that they need? Do I have everything to put my hat in this ring? And it comes to find out that I do. I'm like, I check off that. Do I check that off? It was a long ass list, and I checked all the boxes on the list. Um, Now, and they haven't said no. I applied. I think the application was due like about a month and a half ago. And then about 2 weeks after I submitted after the application deadline, they sent me an email saying, "Hey, we have a few follow-up questions for you." When the email came up on my phone, I'm like, I need to open this. You know how you get that little bar, just like you can't see the whole email? And I'm like, gee, they're gonna tell me no. They're gonna be like, sorry, you know, you're out of the running to becoming the next. And I'm like, and I opened it and it said, we have some follow-up questions. And those follow-up questions were like, um, how many ounces are your meals going to be per meal? Is this the final price that you're pitching to us, including? Please think about transportation, delivery, setup. Is that included in your price? They asked me a question about dietary needs. They asked me a few follow-up questions, right? And I answered them and se las mandé. So to me, I'm like, all right, they didn't say no. I'm still there. I'm still in the running. And then yesterday, they sent me another follow-up email. Igual, my heart dropped the moment that I saw that email notification because it said City of Canyon, Denver, Cristina. I was like, fuck, yes. Yeah, this is the time where they're gonna tell me, thank you for your submission, but we went another route. And it said, we want another Zoom follow-up call with you to discuss the proposal that you submitted. So to me, again, that's saying to me, it's not a no. So now it's like, okay, now this thing is becoming a little bit more real. And I think that's why I'm excited to have this conversation. And we're going to have it on May 31st. So maybe by the next episode, I'll probably have an update for everyone. But I don't know if I'm going to take it. I am right now. At the same time, I am putting all my banking information in line, all my taxes, all of that. That's another part of legitimizing the hustle, is having all these banking information ready, right? Proving your revenue, all these stuff. Because now I'm like, if I do get this contract, I'm gonna need a loan. And traditionally, I have been rejected for loans because we're a risky business. We just started. We haven't been in business for more than 5 years. All of these things to us, traditional banks they're like, stay away from us. No, no, no. But there are community groups, community banks, specifically like organizations who emphasize in creating generational wealth for people of color, who are not traditional lenders, who don't rely on credit history, who don't rely on immigration status, who actually, not only will they give you the loan, but provide you with financial services. They'll help you with accounting services. They're really made for that. And this specific organization I'm talking about is called CEDS, CEDS. And let me pull up their actual name because everybody's got to know about this organization. And they are out of, I believe, Arizona. I'm over here in Denver. and they still support us. And it's called Sets Finance, CEDS finance.org. They are a they support or small businesses like me who are traditionally disproportionately kind of like don't have access to loans. So if I do get this grant, I mean this contract, I am more than likely going to be going for the loan route as well, and just get ready for what's going to come next.
Yeah. No, yeah, but I mean, you're probably. I mean, I feel like you might be there. You know, you might be at the final interview. Some of these are some. That's also another thing, right? Like some of these programs, it takes a while to receive, like to hear back from them because they go through rounds and rounds of applications. But no, yeah. I mean, it sounds like a great. I mean, it's a problem, but it's one of those good problems. Would you say it's a good problem to have, like as a business owner, that you have to find a way to fund this because you're growing at that scale? Is that a good problem to you? Would you
It
say?
is a good problem, right? It's definitely a good problem to have, um, and but one that you have to be like you've I've had to prepare to have this problem. You know what I mean? Like there were so many factors that went into play before I even felt um como se dice, not worthy, but like am I like ready for this? I'm like, can I really do this? Right? And I'm like looking back, I'm like, cabrón, ¿cómo que no lo puedes hacer? I've done it. Like I've done it to a certain scale, but it's like I won't be able to do it by myself. Not like how I have been doing it. This is a time where okay, I need to start building a team. I need to start hiring staff. But in order to do that, I've always been hiring people based on the cash flow that I'm receiving, that I'm bringing in. So if I have the business, then I'm able to hire people, because the business is basically paying for those salaries, right? I don't have that investment money within me to be able to put it into um, more labor, which is what I think I need in my journey where I'm at. Because I've already been operating a small hustle for 4 years, right? And small hustle where I mean it's either I've been employed myself for the past 4.5 years, generating my own income, and at times I've had up to 7 employees in these past 4 years. So I'm ready for the next thing, man.
Yeah, but I guess like what are like your long-term goals with this? Like I'm just curious, like do you want to have 50 employees? Do you want to build something at that scale or like are you comfortable with like okay, let's take it step by step when it comes when the next kind of like how it's taking you 4 years, right, to get to this point. Do you think that like I guess my question was like where how big do you want to grow it? Because I mean, it could go anywhere, right? You could do it nationally. You could. There's some people that go in different states. I don't know, like
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
like your
yeah. No,
goal?
I've thought about this for a minute now, and one of the things I do want to do for sure is I don't want to be working the business day to day like I have been doing. That's the number one thing I want to get myself out of, because that limits me, right? It limits me. Yes, I know I can do the work. I can go in there and hago los tacos, las salsas y todo. I can do it, right? If your catering orders, fulfill it, get it done. But then that llego a la casa y ya no quiero hacer nada. I'm just like, damn, I just had a full ass day. I just did a bunch of stuff. The bills are paid. The rent's paid. Con eso estoy contento ahorita, right? Now the next step is like, okay, I want to start building a team so that I'm not only just generating income to survive for myself, but I'm able to start creating opportunities for others to also start generating income, and eventually building their own hustles. Like I really do see my next business, or like how my business grows, is almost becoming like an incubator hub. That's my dream of like people coming in, working, doing their hustle, and then eventually going off and doing their next thing.
That's interesting because well, I mean, I never talked about the business that I'm building now, but like my long term vision with it is to build a hub for immigrants, where they can start. scale and sell their business. So like that's what I've been trying. That's what I got grant for. And that's why I wanted to like be involved in this, because I feel like I can learn. But I think for me, my long-term vision is like highlight all immigrants, like regardless of status. Like they could be undocumented, they could come with visas, but like really build that community, because I feel like we bring so much from other countries, like so much good food, so much new experiences, so much new perspectives. And I think there's a place where there's this hub where not only can it be like an incubator, but there could be like taxes, legal, and then like every year we highlight the top entrepreneurs, right? Like, we have our own conference, and then internally we could do. I mean, this is what I'm like trying to build, right? But like we could give grants to people. We can give internships or fellowships on
So
different industries, So that
so more for like we're trying to build like it's like como una, it's like an organization, right? Like a support center. You're like, okay, if I walk in through these doors, I can either go this route through these offices and talk to these financial officers or these
yeah,
like business planners, and they can help me do this. Or if I go that way,
pretty
the
much.
second floor they do this.
Yeah, but I mean, I think I'm thinking of it more on like on the digital scale, right? So like I think for
Mm.
me, it's more on like how did Alejandro, right, build his coffee shop? Is there a course for that? Like, can I take that course? And like that way, Alejandro's making money passively because he helped create the course, and somebody is learning how to do it. And it could be, I mean, like we could really help out a lot of people that come from other countries, right? Like taco trucks. How does somebody go through that? And then like the owner makes money because they're teaching it. That's one way, right? And then everything else would be like partnerships. But
Mm.
um
Almost like a master class.
yes, well, something like where there's a membership and anyone can join it, but it's all around like immigrant entrepreneurs, right? Like immigrant entrepreneurship, whether it's like, and it could be like from different scales, right? It could be like, how did the elotero start this, or how did the
Mhm.
taco truck owner did it, or like a big tech company, right? Like how did this person, how did they get into the grocery store? Like
Yes.
like that's what I'm trying to build, but slowly, little by little,
No, 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 and
literally.
I think
Yeah.
that is a service that is needed out there, to be honest. Because I mean, I know it because I get a lot of questions similar like that, right? Like just literally before I went on the live, somebody sent me a message on TikTok, and they're like, "Hey, I have a quick question. My daughter and I want to start doing cold brew lattes and giving them to my husband so he can sell them to his coworkers because he's in construction. And my question to you is, how what is the shelf life? Like, how many days will it be good for, right? And for me, I'm like, that's such a like unique question, like a detailed question that you need to know. Like, okay, if I want to sell this, how many days do I have to sell? I mean, if I want to make this product, how many days do I have to sell it? Um, and it's those type of questions.
Yeah, and imagine you get paid for it, right? Like you mentioned, this passive income, you don't have to be there day to day, right? Like you grow, like, and that's why. Have you heard of this website called Biz by Zell? Like it's
No.
BIZBUY and then SELL.com. So it's you go on that website and you put your zip code and you look at all the businesses that are being sold out there, right? And you can look at like laundromats, you can look at supermarkets, all these other
Mm.
things. And I think if we, like, for example, you get to the point when you're like, you know what, I want to sell this, you just list it on there, and then there's somebody that has the funds, they're like, I'm gonna buy it from this person, and like you could get acquired, or you can franchise it, right? You can franchise your own.
Wait, that exists right now?
Yeah, but I mean, it's not for the immigrant community, but it's just like in general. It's
No, I
called
mean for
Biz.
me, I want to sell my food truck.
Oh yeah, you can, yeah, you can. I can put it in the chat. Is there a chat here? No,
I think
I can
so.
send it. I can't. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, let me put it in the chat.
Yeah,
Oh
because
no,
I'm
I
like,
can't.
maybe I'll sold my food truck actually.
Yeah,
And with the whole business, because that's how I bought my food truck that I have right now, and the concept con todo el changarro, todo el business, I bought
yeah.
it directly. And now I'm like, okay, maybe it's time for me to let go of that food truck.
Yeah, I put it on the chat. I sent it to you privately. You should check it out. Like, there's like, maybe you could do an episode on this. On like, hey, let's just look at some of these businesses to get inspired.
Oh
Some people
yeah.
might, because and some are affordable. Some are like 50K, 100K, like yeah, it took you some time to save it, but like if you're buying like a 7-Eleven or you're buying a laundromat, those are, you talked about cash flow. Those are some of the businesses that bring in good cash flow on like on a monthly basis. You know, tienes que
Yeah.
estar ahí. You know, you guys 1 or 2 workers just cleaning it and maintenance. And I think
So
yeah, that's where we're at. But I don't know. I'm all
no, I
full of
love it. No,
ideas.
and this, and no, let me tell you my idea. Let me tell you how
Yeah,
I see myself, my business, and
yeah,
how I said that I wanted it to be like a hub for creation. I don't mean just people coming working for me a little bit and then taking off with ideas and leaving,
yeah,
right? Like that's not what
yeah.
I mean. What I mean is like, so I've utilized, for example, worker skills, culinary skills for my menus in the past, right? Like Suhey making her salsa, right? The birria recipe from one of the staff workers that I worked for, that worked for me, um, using their skills. And I'm like, I would love to have a program within the business, right? Like now we're established, ya estamos chingones, tenemos restaurantes aquí, allá y todo that. But not only are you working to earn a paycheck, but you're also learning what kind of permit you needed to have to be able to sell, for example, my horchata ice lattes, right? What can, as a cook, maybe you want to start your own mole recipe, your own mole salsa, and you start creating a mole salsa and you use our kitchens because we already have the licenses, we already have the structure. So you're able to use our restaurant as a place where you can develop your recipe. And then through our program that we have in-house in our restaurants, you can take those courses so that you can get branding, so that you know how to get a license, how to get it distributed. And then here's the best part, Juan. I want to sell that salsa in the restaurant, buy your salsas as wholesale so that we can use it on our burritos. And now you as an employee for Combitaco, you are not only at the register, but when those burritos are being made and sold, you're also getting a little bit of pay from that because we used your salsa that you sold to me. That's
No,
my
that's
big dream.
amazing. No, yeah,
That's my big one.
that would really empower a lot of workers, honestly, given that like, you know, inflation and like minimum wage. You're like, because some companies, even like startups, because I'm mainly in like the startup scene, and like they give away equity and they give away all these things, but for you, you're like, I'll help you find out a revenue stream within the company. Like you'll make money while you're working here, extra, right? For like I think like the um I think the like in the old days, it's more on like you'll get some tips. I think that's like a similar, but you're taking it to another level where you're like, I'll teach you, I'll help you, and you're gonna make way more money,
Yes,
right?
and it doesn't. It could be a marinade, right? Because I've had some of my staff who make a bomb marinade for the pastor, right? You can package your own marinade. You can create your own seasoning blend. You can do your own aguas frescas, right? There's so many things that restaurant workers or restaurant owners buy from wholesalers. Pretty much
Mhm.
everything I just mentioned, some ingredient or as a whole thing, you purchase it from someone else. So why not empower employees to be able to have a little buy-in of that company? And like you said, right, the minimum wage increase, maybe this is a way for them to say, you know what, I learned what I needed to do here. I put in my time, and either they can go off and do their own thing or be so happy that they want to continue working there.
Yeah, I don't think
So
I've seen that. Is there like any company out there that has done something similar to that, or
I've
like
done
what do you
some
think?
research a little bit. I haven't done too much research, and the
Mm.
only reason why I've done a little bit of research in this is because, like you, I applied for a grant. So it's called the Workers Lab. Workers
No way,
Lab.
I'm applying to that one too. I haven't finished my
Yes,
application, but that's the one I'm
dude, you
applying
gotta
to.
do it. Tomorrow's the last day.
I thought it was the 27th. I thought it
Oh,
was the
I don't know.
27th.
I always in my head maybe I give myself 2 extra days because
Any
I know
tips?
how.
Because you already finished it. I'm gonna finish it
Um,
this weekend.
the biggest tip: use AI,
ChatGPT?
ChatGPT. You
Yeah.
know, because like this idea, I just put it in there and it helped me answer some of these like interesting questions, but it really, it helped me get through the application a lot faster.
What about
Um,
the video? Did you use AI for the video too? Like you
no,
can
I wish that would be nice. See, the way that I just talked to you about it, you know how excited I got? That's the exact same level I use in the video. Because you get excited about these ideas. Because
Oh yeah.
to me, I'm like, fuck, I would have loved that. Because I worked at a restaurant. You know what? Actually, that happened to me. Maybe that's why I thought about this. I used to work at Wild Rivers Water Park back in the day I started working there when I was 13 years old. And
Mhm.
one day I made this thing called the funnel dog, where it was a funnel. I used the like almost like a corn dog, but instead
Yeah.
I used the funnel cake batter, and I put jelly on it, and everybody loved it. Everybody loved it. They so much loved it that they put it on the menu. And
Really? Oh, that's
yeah, yeah,
awesome.
yeah. And I remember people be like, "Are you taking any cut of that? Are you getting any stuff?" And I was like, "Nah, it's just like But it's pretty cool to be that involved within the. I remember how happy it made me. I remember how damn I should have talked about that
Yeah.
in the video. That would have been good to add in the application because that's a lived experience, and I just remember that making me empower me so much. Imagine how it would have made me feel if I was taking a little bit of that revenue for every one of those being sold. That would have not only empowered me, but I would have had some money, extra money in my pocket.
Yeah. And you're talking about the Workers Life Innovation Fund, right? You're talking about that one. The one
Yep,
that it's 4 months and then you get a chance to do 100, 200,000.
200,000.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Then yeah, we're talking about the same one. Yeah, somebody sent it to me. They're like, "Oh, you should send it in with your idea of like this one-stop hub." And like, so yeah. Now that I know you
Yeah,
apply, I mean that'd be great. I'm gonna apply. For sure,
yeah.
I'll
No,
get
you
it.
have to apply. And at the yeah, no, I think, and I feel like that's such a good program or grant, and like we talked about for this entire show, which is there are opportunities out there. There are resources out there, whether that be to understanding how to legitimize the hustle and how to get a business license, how to pay for taxes, how to structure your LLC, how to create a menu, how to have digital platforms. Like there are resources for all of this, including some of these great ideas that you and I have, right? There are even resources for us talking about resources that we've used in the past and ones that we're hoping to get.
Mhm.
They
Yeah,
exist.
and ChatGPT as well. You ask you to give you
ChatGPT.
some ideas. Ask you to give
Dude,
you some ideas.
ChatGPT, I'm using that thing every day. Every day I use ChatGPT because here for me, Juan, I feel like I'm a more powerful, like verbal communicator.
Mm.
For me, writing is difficult, has always been difficult for me. So now I can't wait till ChatGPT I can just talk into it. I'll be like, okay, ChatGPT, listen to my next 2 minute rant and then concise that and put it into like some comprehensive one pager. And it's going to come a time where we're going to be able to do that. But right
Mhm.
now, there's some of my thoughts, some of my run on sentences. I go like a long ass run on sentence and I'm just like typing away my idea and I click enter and then ChatGPT puts it in a very concise, very manipulative, or sepa cómo se dice, pero they do it.
Yeah, yeah. So I listened to this podcast. It's called Marketing Against the Grain. It's by like two chief marketer officers. One at Hubs. I'm not sure if you're familiar with HubSpot or Zapier, but they're like tech companies. And
Yeah.
and they were talking about how how like ChatGPT is powered by like chat what the one that is open to the public, not the plus version, but like the normal one is like it's GPT 3. Now
Mm-hmm.
when they released GPT 4, apparently they were giving this example that like one of the CMOs, they took out a napkin, and on that napkin they drew out like a website, and they put okay, I want the button here, I want this headline here, and then they submitted it to GPT 4, and it bust out a whole landing page based on the napkin. And I was like, that is crazy. That you know how fast people are gonna be innovating? Well, the ones that know about it are gonna be innovating. And that's and it's only been a few months. That's the crazy part. Like if it's able to do that, imagine you give it, hey, build me this one-stop hub. Like I mean, it just opens up a lot of opportunities. I just
Create me a training manual for my staff. Create me a training manual, like an opening and closing procedure, so that my staff know how to open and close my coffee shop.
Mm-hmm. And even with
Damn, I'm gonna
marketing,
write that one down.
I
It
mean,
probably
there's
could do that now. It probably could
yeah,
do that now.
yeah, yeah. But
I
like
because
even
I
with
really that's
marketing,
another thing I need, Juan, in my business. I need to structure it. Like I'm structured in some ways, like the business side, but
yeah.
then when you come internal, everything, a lot of it lives right here in my head and in my Google Docs, right? Where I'm like,
Mhm,
okay, I
mhm.
think about a keyword. I'm like, shit, I know I've written this in the past. Let me go look for this catering order form. Let me look for it, and I find it, and it's like there it lives. But it really should live in a structured setting where other people have access to it. Where if somebody wants to respond to a phone call about an inquiry about a catering service, where everybody's responding the same way, that everybody's taking in that order through that same order form. All of these processes, that's another thing that I'm lacking in my own business. And now that we're talking ChatGPT, I'm gonna see if this homegirl chat, because for me, ChatGPT is a girl. Um, uh, if homegirl can help me create a training manual, that would be awesome.
No, yeah, yeah. It's just accelerating, right? Like when you were talking about like, okay, I can't wait to chat GPT. I can speak to it and it'll give me a rant. But like you can all like have you tried the AI art tools like Dolly or Stable Diffusion? You just give it a prompt and it can create any AI art. Like I literally used it yesterday. I used it to create like product photography because I have a photography background. I did product photography of tacos carne asada, and I added beans and rice, and it came out incredible. So like, it's really no, it's next level. It's like you
Dude,
don't even
I need to. ¿Sabes qué? Our next episode, which we only have about 4 minutes left here, so we're gonna be wrapping things up. But
yeah.
I think our next episode should be on ChatGPT and how our gente, can utilize it. How we can, how because that right there can be a great. I'm sure you used it to maybe use it on a menu or to use it on a billboard or right.
Yeah, for like marketing, right? So like right now, yeah, I'm gonna use it. I'm working with this company, so they sell. So like with the business that I'm building right now, like I'm working with this immigrant-owned business that helping them implement like a Shopify store, and I have to do that whole setup, right? But I could really accelerate like the product photography, and I could add like crazy designs. I could use ChatGPT for product descriptions or good titles or like hooks on the website, right? And and yeah, I just think people need to hop on before things get too fast, and then the people that are already a year ahead, like they're gonna be behind, right? Because it always
What
happens.
year? 3 months ahead.
Yeah, like a year from now, you're gonna be able to say, "Hey, build me this like landing page or
No,
implement
a
this
year
right
from
now."
now, I'm gonna wake up and it's gonna say, Alejandro, today you're gonna need this email heading to respond to this customer, or like it's gonna get
No,
like
yeah,
that.
and Google's already doing it. Google's gonna implement like GPT into email. So like when you're gonna instead of you going through all your emails, you could just say, "Hey, can you summarize all my emails and give me a response?" You know how like how crazy that is. I mean, it's yeah, like people are
It's
like
here.
it's
So
gonna
I
come to
so
people. So
so
yeah,
I think that next episode, especially because I don't think Victor's gonna be back yet. So we're gonna have Juan back next episode so we can talk about ways we can utilize not only ChatGPT but other platforms, software that is out there, whether that be to take in payments, to create a website, to for example, I have an answering machine that takes my phone calls, my inbound phone calls. When somebody calls my shop, somebody's always answering, and I'm able to get those responses in my phone, so I'm never missing a catering request. All of those
mm,
little things that exist out there, I think, can also help folks on their neck as they're looking to do their next thing in their business, right? Maybe they already have started getting some customers, they already have some of these licenses, and they've structured their business. Now they're like, okay, how can I get some more clients? Maybe it's because I need to build a website or a social media presence, and a lot of these softwares can help support that.
no, yeah, 100%. There's just so many AI like in the creative side. Like there's so many use cases. I'll give you one more example if you allow me to give you one more example.
Let's go.
So there was so similar the same podcast. It's called Marketing Against the Grain, and they keep up with like all the AI stuff. They were talking about this modeling agency, all AI models. Think about that. Like you don't even need to have people. You can just describe the ideal model, like whatever you want to put. Blue eyes, tall, 6'3", toned body, and that's how they're making money. And even on Fiverr, there's AI artists. There's a lot of opportunity. I mean, I like marketing. That's the only reason why I bring all these things up, because I listen to these stuff and I play around with these tools. I'm like, oh, it's
Yeah,
actually kind of
no,
cool.
and that's and then you use it in your business
Oh yeah.
to right to
Yep.
like help you have more time for yourself or take more have you allow you to take on more clients. All of these things that
Mhm.
these platforms can be useful for. But anyways, thank you all for either watching this or listening to the podcast. I want to thank you all as you are with us here, hearing us talk about our own business ventures, our journeys. But also, I want to thank you all for sticking with us, for giving us some time to figure out how we really want to structure the Undocu Hustle show. Let us know on the comments what you want to hear more of, how we should structure it. But for now, we are committed to going on Fridays at 5 p.m. for 1 hour to talk about various topics about entrepreneurship, regardless of immigration status, regardless if you don't have access to capital or traditionally have been disenfranchised from entrepreneurship. We hope that through some of our lived experiences and even some of the research that we do, whether that be through listening to podcasts or utilizing some of these platforms or services, that through us you get some information to help you in your own hustle. Any last words, Juan, before we wrap it up?
No, I just think just do something every day to get you closer to where you want to be. I mean, I think that's my piece of advice. I try to do something every day, even if it's like one email, getting me closer, or do one taco. Just take it day by day. I think that's the best thing I would say for people listening out there.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Undocu Hustle Show.